Hello, Sudhanshu. Sudhanshu, am I audible? Sudhanshu,
Hello, everyone. So, we are just about to start now. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm Sudhanshu Mishra from Program and Project Implementation Cluster International Solar Alliance. And thank you very much for the esteemed presence of the officials as well as the Honorable Minister from Fiji. And this particular session is very important session in which International Solar Alliance during the past G20 summit has has published a report on universal energy access in which we have concentrated upon scaling of solar mini grid specifically to the area in which the countries majorly dominated by Africa region. There is a need to implement to scale solar mini grid projects so that they can able to understand about the nitty-gritties about how the projects will be scaled, what are the regulatory and policy interventions which is very much required, and how we can, what are the positive business models that can be utilized as per the requirement of the country, and so that with objective of scaling the mini grid project for the universal energy access across the region. So I welcome you all. And now I request Mr. Ramesh Kumar, Chief of Unit, PPIC, Program and Project Implementation Cluster, ISA, who is available virtually, and give his opening remarks. Thank you very much. Over to you, sir.
Uh, Thank you, Sudhanshu. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir, you are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So, His Excellency Masio Potamatu, Minister for Housing and Local Government, Republic of Fiji, Mr. Said Mahu, Deputy Director, Renewable Energy, Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, uh, and is also the national focal point of Ghana for ISA. Mr. Wills Agricole, Principal Secretary for Energy and Climate Change, Ministry of Environment, Energy and Climate Change, who is also national focal point of Seychelles to ISA. All the distinguished panelists, distinguished participants, both physically and virtually available. First of all, let me welcome you all to the Solar Hub, which is the ISA Pavilion in the prestigious COP28 premises, and to this session on scaling solar mini grids through sustainable business models for universal energy access. It's my privilege and pleasure to set the context for this very important session. As Mr. Sudhanshu was talking about, mini grid will play a very important role in scaling the or reaching the universal energy access, which is one of the very important goals set in 2015 by UN, agreed by all the countries to achieve the universal energy access by 2030. So we are in a way we are in the middle of that 15 years span, and it's time for us to review the what we have achieved so far globally and what are the issues, and then what are the actions to be taken. So these are the very important things which we were considering. As India hosted the presidency of the 2023 of the G20, ISA had undertaken a very important assignment to see where do we stand in terms of the universal energy access across the globe? What are the uh, possible steps to be taken to address this issue and to achieve this target of universal energy access by 2030? Some of the inference of some of the important observations which we have noted during our assessment. We have seen that almost 675 million people does not have the access to electricity, and which consists of about maybe 9% of the 9.9% away from the universal access. With the current progress and the processes followed by various countries, it's bit of a concern that we may not we may be achieving an incremental progress. We may be reaching about 92% by 2030. We go by the current business models or the current approaches, and that means almost 660 million people may not still have the electricity by 2030 if we don't take actions today. So that was the one of the very important observation we had. That means we need to accelerate the entire process of universal energy access. Then we try to understand what could be the uh, possibilities. And one thing is which is very clear is that solar and along with the battery storage will play a very very crucial role for achieving the universal energy access. With the reduction in the pricing of solar panels and also the battery storage, I think, and through a smart structuring of the solar projects, I think the solar with the battery can play an important role. We then try to understand the various segments where this universal energy access issues are there. So we have seen that there are three clear segments. One, which are the villages or the areas which are very close to the existing grid within say 10 to 15 kilometers. We saw that this can the best way to getting the universal energy access is through the adding more solar in the grid. So that will be almost 30% of the people can be benefited by that. But substantially, almost close to 59%, which are the areas where the people are staying away from the grids. Probably the mini grids would be the best solution now, even the cost effective solutions. That's what we have seen. Or maybe around 9%, which are very remote and fragmented hamlets. It may not be, even mini grids may not be viable where we need to go for the isolated solar system. So we have estimated the potential of that means the major role can be played by the mini grids. And another important thing which we have seen, the current methodology, I think we need to focus more on the private investment because that's the way we can mobilize the funds and make it very sustainable. For that, we have kind of given the recommendation that the policies need to be reviewed by many countries to promote private investment. There need to be payment security mechanisms to bring the what you call the investor confidence. And third component will be the capacity building. These are the very three important things which we have seen it. So I'm very extremely happy to set this context because this discussion of criminal panelists and the key the officials from various ministries, it's very very important to understand and take further actions so that we can bring more mini grids, accelerate more mini grids through private investments, and by making necessary changes in the policies and regulations, capacity building, and also the bringing investor confidence. In small this thing for investor confidence, we are also working on a payment guarantee system for the Africa, about $200 million fund is being created so that more private investments can be attracted. And we will also follow this with the plan for Asian countries. So with this, let me conclude here my welcome and speech as well as the setting the topics. Many thanks for joining this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for provides for setting up the context, and he has rightly indicated that for scaling solar mini grid we require to address three major pillars, which is first is a very robust policy and regulatory framework, so that person can and so that the citizens of the country can be able to understand about how the projects can be scaled as per the demography of the respective country. Second is about the technical know-how about how the project is need to be implemented in terms of mini grids as well as DRE based systems. Along with that, also includes the assistance. The moment these two major pillars are being satisfied, you also required to showcase them that how the particular projects can be implemented through pilot projects, through providing VGF, viability gap funding mechanism type of financial instrument, so that the cost of the project can be reduced and then it can be scaled further. So further to that, thanks a lot, sir. I will request Mr. Wills Agricol, Principal Secretary of Energy and Climate Change, Ministry of Environment, Energy and Climate, to give his inaugural address. Over to you, sir. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, and good morning, everyone. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon. I have the honor to deliver this inaugural statement on behalf of the government of Seychelles. The Seychelles has established an energy policy focused on an energy efficiency and upscaling of renewable energy program. All of this has continued to develop a holistic blue economy approach, placing ocean governance in the forefront of sustainable development and coupling this with a drive to win climate finance for a renewable energy agenda. A dual approach that is setting an example for small island developing states locally. So as a small island developing state, Seychelles has limited land resources, but we remain committed to finding innovative methods of sustainable development for the benefit of our country and our people. Therefore, we are weighing up all the resources available to us in our ocean and taking informed choices on how to develop them for the benefit of our country. We must explore the golden opportunity that solar technology presents for not only strengthening our energy security, but also for the provision of clean, affordable, and sustainable energy to combat climate change. Therefore, Seychelles has endeavored to clean our energy sector by accelerating the transition of renewable energy and adoption of energy efficiency measures. Most of the energy access deficit population lies in underdeveloped region where consumers struggle to afford electricity. The high financial risk in such regions also increased project costs for developers, which widen the gaps between consumers' affordability and suppliers' viability. Seychelles is among the 4 countries in African continent with 100% access to electricity, or which over the most of the energy is generated from fossil fuel. Energy transition is a crucial enabler of sustainable development and climate resilience. So therefore, Seychelles is highly dependent on the importation of fossil fuel to meet its energy demands. To address increasing concerns about the energy security and global warming, the government of Seychelles has intensified its effort to scale up the share of renewable energy in the country's energy mix. The government has targeted to reach 5% coverage of its electricity demand. This was in 2020, it had already been met. And we are now focusing on our 15% target. And this is in accordance with our nationally determined contribution, which will require a joint effort from the government and the population. The use of a PV photovoltaic system is gaining increasing popularity in Seychelles. You know, Seychelles has 115 islands, and now we are embarking on mini grids to spread our renewable energy policy in all these outer islands. Small to medium sized consumers are installing grid tied photovoltaic system on their roofs. In November 2018, our main supplier of utilities, Public Utilities Corporation, embarked on a projects which aim at developing and commissioning a 5-megawatt solar farm on one of our reclaim islands, which was commissioned in April 2021. The utility is supporting government is envisioned to have a sustainable energy future for Seychelles and shall be increasing the current amount of renewable energy contribution to achieve the national target of 15% by 2030. So therefore, International Solar Alliance has provided grant support to Seychelles. So we've knocked on the door of Solar ISA, and we've already now they assisted us in a solar cold storage of 5 metric tons, 5 kilowatt in one of our island. And this project is completed and over to concerned bodies in the country this year. Householders can significantly contribute to the solar PV system uptake. And the government of Seychelles had introduced some policies and financial incentive for over a decade for it to take place. And the incentive includes exempted value added tax, that is the tax which is you paid on imported renewable energy technologies, a rebate scheme for PV system, and access to low interest rate, which is a loan on the PV system, which you can access from the commercial bank on PV technology. The regulatory framework, of course, very important, plays crucial in attracting and ensuring the sustainability of the mini grids market in the country beyond subsidy grants and or reliance on donor its projects. Any fluctuation in crude oil prices, as you all know, is likely to pose a significant threat to economic development. However, renewable energy, especially solar PV, has much potential in Seychelles and can significantly contribute in energy security and sustainable development. The benefit of going distributed solar solution is that the system reduces dependency on the grid, ensure security at times of crisis. Secondly, it is highly efficient in reducing carbon footprint, which in turn are to the advantage of achieving climate goals. So for a small island developing state, remote settlement, and distant communities, solar grid is the real system to reduce cost and create a sense of awareness of the energy consumption, which will lead to energy conservation. With these few words, I declare this side event on scaling solar mini grids to sustainable business models for universal energy access opened. And I thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wills, for enlightening us with the thoughts as well as your approach in terms of scaling solar mini grid projects. Now, I request His Excellency Mr. Mashiu Katamatu, Minister of Housing and Local Government, Republic of Fiji, to give his keynote address. So,
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Bulavinaka and a very good afternoon to you all. I'll start my presentation to you this afternoon by sharing some background information about where I come from, an island of Fiji. It's an island that is floating somewhere in the South Pacific Ocean, and it's about 14,200 kilometers away from Dubai. So it's not really far. Fiji lies in the Pacific Ocean with a total land area of 18,300 square kilometers. There's a total islands of close to 300 islands, but out of these 300 islands, only 100 are inhabited. Population is not really that big. It's less than a million, it's close to 900,000, with more than 80% of our population that live in one of the major islands in Fiji. We've got two major islands, one is Viti Levu, another one is Buno Levu. Our national utility company, which is Energy Fiji Limited, serves 4 main islands of Fiji, and these are one we just mentioned earlier, Vitilevu. Then we have the another smaller island, which is Vunolevu, and then we have the two other small islands, Taviuni and Ovalau. The remaining other smaller islands are looked after by the Department of Energy through our electrification program. Having access to reliable, sustainable, and affordable electricity supply are the key outcomes of any electrification project. Access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy is a prerequisite for economic and social development. Electrification is important for income development, healthcare, basic education, and personal safety, amongst other things. There has been a paradigm shift from the use of conventional sources to renewable energy. In Fiji, our electricity access rate stands at around 96%, out of which around 80% of our households are connected to the national grid, and 16% are using intermittent supply. Our target is to electrify the 4%, remaining 4%, which are mostly in the remote, mostly in the Maritimes, and additionally provide a sustainable and affordable electricity supply to those with intermittent supply. Our government have put in place programs and initiatives to expedite our electrification program. This includes, but not limited to, the supply of renewable energy technology and removing the community household financial contribution, which has been acting as a hindrance to our electrification program. I'm pleased to share that today our government has installed more than 12,000 solar home systems, it's around 300 watts capacity in our rural and maritime communities and villages. However, we still have more than 100 communities that are still relying on the use of fossil fuel diesel generators. It is worth noting that these solar systems have been consistent, free, and sustainable. We are glad to see the villagers who are able to use electrical appliances in their homes without any concern of inconvenience. A total of 5 communities have been supported by the government and donor partners with installation of solar diesel hybrid micro grid systems. In 2017, a revolving fund facility called the Fiji Rural Electrification Fund, the FREF, was launched. The facility attracts funding from donor partners and agencies for our electrification project. The FREF also leverages the participation of the private sector to operate and manage these projects. The launching of the FREF coincides with Fiji's COP23 presidency in 2017. From its inception to date, the FREF has grown and has attracted funding from UK, New Zealand through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Australia through the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and the US through the Trade and Development Agency, or USTDA, to name a few. The United States government have contributed a total of US $680,000 for the feasibility studies of 75 communities in Fiji. They have engaged the Arizona State University to carry out the study. An electrification of more than US $15 million will be required to roll out the implementation of these 76 sites or 76 communities. The rolling out of this program to our rural and maritime communities comes with its unique challenges and shortcomings. This is mainly due to the scarce and remote geographical locations, high fuel and transportation costs, low economic activities on the island, where people residing in very remote places out from the main urban centers or out from the main two major islands of our country. And this means that there is a greater need for appropriate resources and manpower. As such, our government will need to provide the necessary support and incentives to encourage the participation of the private sector. The government, with the support of UNDP and the Global Green Growth Institute, have put together a business model to attract private sector and private sector, also engagement with the community on the productive use of electricity. It is believed that this will contribute to the long-term sustainability of the projects. In addition, our government is also looking forward to the support. We're so fortunate to be part of ISA, and we're also looking forward to the support from them in the future. Provide the expert advice on similar business models and initiatives that have been tested and rolled out in other countries, which we can adopt and improve on the current setup. With the best practices and lessons learned from our counterparts, will help us work on practical and sustainable strategies. With those few words, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for the opportunity to address you all today. Thank you very much. Nawalek.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, sir. And congratulations for the initiatives that you are taking. And from on behalf of International Solar Alliance, I will tell, and I'm quite honored to say that Ministry of Fiji, as well as is supporting us, as well as they are very much active in terms of scaling solar projects. Regardless, the requirement is exclusively for solar mini grid or from solar floating solar projects or solarization of healthcare facility. And they are very much active in terms of adopting the new business model, what type of financial mechanism instrument is required to scale the solar projects so that the energy access can be penetrated to the needy ones. So thank you very much, sir, for the initiatives that you have taken, and we are very much happy to look forward to further scaling up the solar projects to assist you in terms of providing the technical know-how, as well as in terms of providing the commercial as well as technical perspective information about how the projects can be implemented out there. Thank you very much for the address that you have provided. Now like I said before, we have prepared one report in the previous, just the recently concluded G20 summit about universal energy access. So I'm just going to provide you some of the brief excerpts from the report that we have prepared, so that you can be aware about what all are the necessary interventions which is required for scaling solar mini grid projects. I request IT team to display the presentation. Yeah, thank you, IT. So let me tell you, the based on the recent analysis and the recent report that we have got, as Mr. Ramesh has in during his context setting remarks have indicated, that despite the global efforts, still the 675 million people are without energy access. And the way the target that has been defined, that we have to give 100% universal energy access by 2030, it seems to be a very distant affair. With the current pace, if you see on the extreme right hand side, we will be going to achieve that 660 or million people will still be without energy access, which says that whatever the interventions or whatever the initiatives that we are taking, that is absolutely below the power. And why this particular thing has happened, it is basically the by understanding not only related, it is not related to the initiative, it is related to the holistic information about what type of business model which is very much important and suitable for the country, what type of funding mechanism or instrument is required, because each and every country is having their different set of requirements technically. You can see the demography also. Every country will be going to have a separate different demography and the different set of requirements, and the activities both in terms of their day-to-day life as well as the commercial one is different. So a single business model which is successful in X country will not be suitable for the another business. The same business model cannot be replicated to the other country. So you require a robust, flexible information related to what type of policy and regulatory initiative is required. Along with that, what type of financial instrument is suitable. So there are the technologies one also need to adopt, that for what set of the consumer, what type of technology is required. Cannot be exclusively the grid supply or grid indication can go to each and every consumer. It will be very costly. Cannot be only the mini grids or a distributed energy system is required for X amount of people. So the segregation of consumer is very much important. So if you see that, if we talk about majorly, there are three things when we provide the information related to universal energy access. One is through grid indication, another is through mini grids, and the third is for scattered consumers or villagers. It will be the distributed renewable energy system. So when we talk about grid extension, what are the challenges that consumer is facing? One is delays in planning and implementation. Second, you can see the implementation challenges in terms of very difficult terrain. Each and every country is having their different geographical the scenario, so it is very difficult to get the information right during the implementation phase, during the planning phase for the implementation of the project. Third is it is too expensive when it go to the long distance where the villages are scattered enough. So you cannot rely exclusively on the grid integration. Then fourth comes to the significant O&M cost and effort. Here you can be able to understand about why the capacity building training is very much important. If X company is able to execute a project, you have to train the local people about how the maintenance can be done. Each and every company will not be going to go there and do the maintenance unless and until the local people are able to understand about how the project is working for their benefit and how they are going to maintain it. So you have to give them the proper training about operation and maintenance. And last is about the utilization. If a particular project is executed, it is not only about execution of the project and feeding the power into the grid. It's We are also talking about the consumption pattern of the consumer. Project can be successful if there is proper demand and supply balance which is maintained. So that's why grid integration is exclusively, when we talk about the cost benefit analysis, then it is related to the limited area, perspective, when we are talking about the techno commercial benefit of grid integration, grid extension. So what are the other technologies, renewable energy solutions which are available? First is no doubt utility scale and rooftop solar. If you see, when we talk about utility scale projects, it is exclusively meant for semi-urban or urban areas where there is already grid, penetration is already there. You have to synchronize the solar system with the grid and then feed the power so that the cost of the power can be reduced. The things can be reduced for their benefit. When we talk about mini grids along supported by battery energy storage system is exclusively for the rural villages where there is considerable amount of healthcare facility, schools, the different commercial activities, small scale activities which is happening. So mini grids is very suitable for those regions. Then there comes the standalone systems which consist of rooftop, solar homes lighting system. Depending upon the sizing can be done based on the consumption pattern of the villages, which is very much far scattered, where you cannot take, where the logistics is an issue. You cannot take the material right away to the respective consumer. So there the solution from home lighting system or other off-grid small scale DRE based distributed renewable energies small scale standalone rooftop systems can be installed. So these are the three major uh, technological solution which has been provided for universal energy access. Now, if you see how these technologies are being segmented, You cannot do these all technologies right away in all the geographical way in just a flow for the respective country. You have to do the segmentation in a better way, how it is beneficial in terms of cost, how it is beneficial in terms of reception of technology to the respective consumer. So for urban areas where the distance is of 10 to 15 kilometers, grid extension seems to be quite cost benefit. You can do the solar projects in terms of solar utility based or utility based rooftop projects for the those areas where the implementation is need to be done. When we talk the distance beyond 15 kilometers, then solar mini grid is the best thing. The cost which is required for implementation of the solar project is lower than the cost to be implemented from the grid extension. Then comes the DRE system. If we are going beyond 50 kilometers and all, and the population is very much scattered, logistics is the issue, then comes the standalone systems where you can do the off-grid solar installation for a cluster of people living there, or you can distribute the home lighting system based on the necessity that is required for them. Now, if you see this particular graph, it shows the pattern about how the grid extension becomes expensive with reference to increase in population, with reference to increase in the distance. So grid extension increase in the distance increases the cost of the project. Similarly, for the mini grid, you can see that with increase in the population or increase in the population density, cost of the project reduces, but with the distance increase, its cost also increases in a very different way. And then fourth is the distributed renewable energy system. It totally depends upon the economies of scale and the percentage of the population. You can consider the cost of the DRE based system can reduce if the population is quite on a higher side. So what are the challenges that we are talking about? Why the mini grid projects is not being executed? So first and foremost thing, like I said before, is the policy and regulatory challenges. There are few of the countries like Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania, who have a very good robust policy in terms of solar mini grids. But when we talk about other countries, we need to understand about what type of policy intervention is required for scaling mini grid projects, whether they have those technical know-how, commercial know-how, regulatory know-how about what type of business model is suitable for them. Second is related to the technical competence and the capacity building. We need to provide them the assistance in terms of what are the technical nitty-gritties. Like I said before, what type of technical jargons, how the particular project is needed to be installed, and what type of you know uh, impact it is going to it is going to create in their life. So that type of training is required both for the technicians and engineers level as well as for the government stakeholders. And third, which is very much important, is financial. When we talk about mini grid projects, it is very important to understand about the mini grid projects are somewhat capital intensive projects. It includes solar, not only the modules, but it also includes the battery energy storage system. And you have to maintain both the system in a very when we talk about in a cluster of villages, you have to take care of both the systems in terms of technically as well as commercially, and it should be viable for a private consumer to install the project. So for doing that, you require a financial assistance, and countries should be robust enough that they should have such type of financial assistance in terms of either VGF or incentive or subsidy to showcase that at least one or two projects and the pilot can be done. And then there should be a proper adaptation of revenue sharing mechanism in that particular area so that this particular small scale projects can be made viable. One cannot whole and sole depend upon the grant based funding in which 100% funding has been given to you and then the project has been installed and then nobody is taking care of it because it is free of cost. Freebies cannot take the project and cannot make the project viable. So you should have a particular project should have a better business model in which ultimately it should become a self-sustainable one. So these are the three issues which is needed to be taken care of. So when we talk about the business model, there are several stories, several case studies which are available across the globe which shows that this particular mini grid projects can be made viable. We have a success story of ABC model, which is anchor load business and consumer model. And in that particular, the mini grid project has been it has been shown that the project has become self-sustainable one. Then there is another business model which is based on build, own, operate, and maintain of 1 megawatt across 24 sites in Kenya that has shown that this particular project is a profitable one. Then there is another model which is build, own, operate, and appliance financing model from Tanzania, which has shown that the project is possible, a profitable one, techno-commercial viable. And last is franchise model of Nigeria. It is better that in shorter span of time we cannot discuss about the detailed analysis about this particular business model, but such business models are applicable in different countries, but they cannot you cannot rely on the same, you cannot replicate the same to other country as per the just in the way that it is being successful in one country, it cannot be successful in another country. You have to do the analysis, you have to make proper consumer segmentation, do the survey properly, and then provide them the solution that what type of business model is suitable for them. Right. So now you can see that what are the critical factors which makes solar mini grid a sustainable one. First is smart project structuring and innovative business model, which includes quality and reliability electricity service, promotion of energy efficiency equipments, demand side management, smart tariff design, and integrating local renewable energy sources. Second is use of technology, real-time data assessment. First and foremost thing, for any designing any mini grid, you require a ground data, which should be precise primary data. It should not be a secondary, it should be a primary data. And one have to go to the site, understand how many other consumers are there, what is the consumption pattern of those consumers, and then devise a business model accordingly. Otherwise it will be very difficult to design a system and design the battery in that particular pretext to serve their purpose. So real-time data assessment and management using technology is very much important. Then you have also to understand about not only the consumption, what are the other sources in which the revenue can be generated for a private sector, so that that particular area should have some equipment, some commercial activities to make that particular project a viable one. You require a constant source of consumption also, so that the project and the power can be consumed in a better way. So like I said before, that there should be a proper balance between demand and supply, which is very much important. And third is operation and maintenance management. After the execution of the project, it is not only the project. You have to maintain the modules, you have to maintain the batteries, as well as the transmission line, which is going to the respective consumer, is also needed to be taken care of. It is not just like any other utility based project that I have executed the project, power is feed, and then it is up to the utility to take care of it. It's up to the consumer as well as operator also to understand about O&M of small scale mini grid projects. Third thing is simulation of rural economy, understanding the financial term. What is the percentage of debt? What is the percentage of equity which is needed to be done from the from the developer perspective? Then what type of earning is there from the consumer perspective? Whether whatever the amount that I'm going to implement for execution of the project, I am able to recover that amount from the consumer or not. If not, then what is the percentage of, to reduce the cost? What are the instrument I can use to reduce the cost? It can be simple grant based, subsidy based, or incentive based solution for the initial time is required to execute the project. Later on, mechanisms need to be adopted to make people understand that you will be going to do such and such thing in your day-to-day life, so that this particular project should be viable enough for your own benefit. So that type of knowledge dissemination is also very much important. And so, like I said, in a very brief form, so key levers for universal energy access is suitable policy and regulatory framework, affordable finance, capacity building, development of scaling sustainable business model, as well as development of enabling environment for the interventions. Like I said before, that you need to inform people about what should be your consumption pattern to make mini grid projects viable enough, and for their own benefit they should be able to understand about their consumption load pattern to design the system for their benefit. Thank you. And last but not the least, this particular roadmap, to summarize in a better way, is if you see this scenario, that with the current scenario, you will not be able to achieve more than 91% of the energy access. Accelerate it to 100%. Past activities, you can see that the increased focus on energy access has been made before. Emergence of solar and storage has also been there, but you require innovative, policy and regulatory frameworks, deploy dedicated viability gap funding mechanism or any other instruments which can reduce the costs, drive the capacity building and training, scale the private sector business model to make them understand about the viability of the same, and then sharing of the knowledge and skill. Along with that, for sustainable growth of the mini grid, you also need to increase the market for implementation of mini grid project. You should be able to understand about how that if particular the developer is implementing the project, he should have forecast related to whether there is future plan of grid integration or not. If it is there, then it makes them understand about this project will be unviable after 5 years or 6 years down the line. So that planning is also very much important from the government perspective, so to make the system viable enough. And what milestone is needed to be made? So for any project need to be implemented, you require a project completion schedule. So it is based on the milestone basis. So first milestone is the presence of policy and regulatory framework for the design of mini grid. Second is implementation and monitoring the you should have a set of list of private sector which is very much interested in implementation of project in LDCs and SITs, so that one can be able to understand about from where the project can be done, what are the supply chain instruments and the mechanism from where the logistics can be made and made them available for the private sector to implementation of the project. And the third is about the quality and standards. You can execute project, but you should have understand you standardized as well as quality products to maintain the system and to make the system perform for 25 years down the line. So these three milestones are very much important in terms of scaling solar mini grids. So key recommendation. First is technology deployment. In terms of grid extension, you should stick towards, I don't see that beyond 15 kilometers they are viable enough. It will be a very costly affair. Then beyond that, it should be mini grid, and beyond 50 kilometers, it should be a distributed renewable energy system. We should have a robust policy and regulatory framework for boosting the implementation of solar mini grid projects. And then there should be a proper ecosystem for a private investment to come, do the analysis, do the survey, design the system as per the need of the consumer, and then make the particular system viable enough for them also and conducive also. And last but not the least is providing the training to the local people as well as the policy makers also, to make them understand about the need of the hour for the for the consumer, that how the project is implemented, how the project is maintained. So with that, thank you very much. Post this particular session, ready to address the queries if there is any. Thank you. Now I request Miss Sonia Dunlop. Yeah, sure. Five zero. Right. Thank you. So now I request Miss Sonia Dunlop, CEO Global Solar Council, to act as a moderator, share her thoughts in terms of scaling solar mini grids. And please, over to you. And we also request Ms. Surabhi Rajgopal from Selco, Senior Program Manager from Selco Foundation. And I also request Mr. Wills Agricole to be the part of the panel to share his experience in terms of initiatives taken by Seychelles for scaling solar mini grids. And I also request Mr. Mikhail Belina, Director Energy from Fiji, to share his experience in terms of scaling the solar projects in Pacific Island countries and what is the approach which has been adopted. Over to Sonia. Oh, I will give you just. Can I have the cord this one? Cord is fine. Thank you. Mr. Michael Bileni. Mr. Wilson.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you so much, Mr. Mishra, for your fantastic presentation. And thank you for answering my question. I didn't want to take over as moderator until my question had been answered. Um, so thank you to the International Solar Alliance for organizing this fantastic event about, I think, the most important part of the energy transition, which is making sure that those last 675 million people get access to electricity. My name is Sonia Dunlop. I am the CEO of the Global Solar Council. We are the Global Solar PV Industry Association, representing the whole of the solar value chain, from polysilicon processing to manufacturing to project development, both large scale and small scale, and solar home systems and mini grids, and as well as operations and the recycling of PV modules at the end of their lives. And we are really passionate about the transformational potential that solar can have on people's lives in off-grid locations, both in terms of solar and hybrid renewables, distributed renewables, mini grids, and also in terms of solar home systems and even, solar lighting, really small scale solar solutions that can help bring light to people's lives and much, much more besides. We're going to have a fantastic panel now to discuss some reflections on what we heard this morning from the Seychelles, from Fiji, and from the International Solar Alliance. And thank you to the International Solar Alliance for all the fantastic work you do to help so many countries around the world benefit from solar energy. So on our panel today, we have Ms. Surabhi Rajagopal, the Senior Program Manager at the Selco Foundation, and we're definitely going to be hearing a bit more about what the Selco Foundation does. We have the Director of Energy from the Republic of Ghana, Mr. Michele, from Fiji, Mr. Michele Belen. Very welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. And we have Mr. Will Agricole, from the Republic of the Seychelles, the Principal Secretary of Energy and Climate Change at the Ministry of Environment, Energy and Climate Change, and the national focal point for the Seychelles for the International Solar Alliance, because every country in the International Solar Alliance has a national focal point. So we're going to talk a bit about what are the barriers to solar mini grids and solar home systems and distributed renewable energy in these different markets, and how we can overcome some of those challenges and really try and find solutions and an action plan for implementing those solutions by COP29, COP30, and COP31. I'm always interested in action plans. So, Rabi, if I can maybe come to you first, it'd be useful for you to tell us a little bit more about the Selco Foundation and what you do. And then if you could actually talk to us a little bit about how we can reduce the cost of standalone solar systems, standalone distributed renewable energy systems as well, and how we can use digitalization and smart technology to manage those small-scale systems and those mini grids to make sure that they are being used to maximum effect and we are not wasting a single electron of solar electricity. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing this panel together. I'm Surabhi from Selco Foundation. Selco Foundation is an organization that looks at building the ecosystem, ensuring inclusive innovation for sustainable energy for livelihoods and for healthcare. We work primarily in India and with partners in different parts of sub-Saharan Africa. Like I said, the focus is on inclusive innovation and on ecosystem building around sustainable energy, with the goals being that we see better productivity in terms of livelihoods, increased incomes, and better healthcare outcomes. We work through broadly an ecosystem approach, and I'll bring this in the context of the question that was just brought up, which is that as far as technologies are concerned, as Sudhanshu had just pointed out, you do have microgrids, mini grids, standalone systems, and I will say standalone rather than just solar home lighting, because a lot of these standalone systems are also used to power livelihood appliances, right? Livelihood appliances ranging from on-farm technologies for agriculture, harvesters, transplanters, things that individual small and marginal farmers would use, but also for post-harvest processing technologies within agriculture, like cold storage solutions, um, um, uh, processing of rice, of millets, preservation of horticultural produce, and so on. So, for us, one of the key parts of bringing kind of viability of these solutions is how do you look at the efficiency of the appliances itself? So, there is a lot of work that is happening on the clean energy system side, which is the solar panels, the battery technologies, the inverters, charge controllers, and the decentralized solar clean energy system. But what we're also interested in is the efficiency of the appliances and the availability of smaller scale appliances so that people can actually look at productivity improvements, right? When you look at generation side efforts, what we sometimes perhaps miss out on is the fact that today a lot of agricultural processing is happening at a centralized level. There isn't as much opportunity. So, if I'm a rice need within my community or access area, where we've been able to see, women self-help groups running micro processing units that can then address the needs within that area, powered by a decentralized solar system. But we've also heard examples where it's powered by microgrids and other decentralized appliances.
So, in effect, what you're saying is that solar and other decentralized renewables can decentralize not just the energy system, but decentralize also the rest of the economy and economic activity, agricultural processing. So, we have a kind of double decentralization process going on. And,
Exactly.
and that brings wealth and economic value to these off-grid communities, as you know, with essentially with a GDP boost to the overall country, right? So there is a real economic uh, argument for doing this.
Yeah. And there's also a reduction in transaction costs for these individuals, right? For them to the going beyond the assumption that labor is cheap. Let's talk about drudgery and reduction of drudgery using appliances. And the transaction costs and involved in accessing services can be reduced by having decentralization. And we see that even in the healthcare space, where primary healthcare is a way of decentralizing healthcare access. And decentralized solar energy solutions enable that decentralization of access to services.
Yeah, and healthcare is one of the most just transformational applications of solar. Absolutely. Wills from the Seychelles on the far side of the panel. If you don't mind, I'll come to you next because I want to know if you have you've clearly made huge progress in terms of electrification in the Seychelles over the last 10, 20, 30 years. Have you seen the story that we were just talking about? How decentralized energy gives decentralized economic benefit to communities and decentralized healthcare? And then also, what have you put in place in terms of investor-friendly regulatory frameworks and investor-friendly policy frameworks to attract the investment into the grid and to off-grid, mini-grid, and solar home systems in the Seychelles?
Thank you very much for your question. Yes, Seychelles, yes, has decentralized the economy, and of course, this is associated with the healthcare and also energy. For example, in Seychelles, we have 115 islands, and it is spread over exclusive economic zone of 1.375 million square kilometers. In other words, we are a large oceanic states, and our uh, land surface area is only 455 square kilometers. So you can just distinguish that our EZ is about 3 times the size of France putting together. So the government of Seychelles have decentralized the economy, and we have spread it over all the country. And we have these health centers, which is over all the district, and it's quite an a standard which is acceptable. But of course, with all these health centers, the issue of energy comes into play. And with the assistance from different partners, we've been able to assist the health centers in putting PV installation in the rooftops, and also assist other rehabilitation centers to have this type of technology, and even go beyond that to the army headquarters, whereby we also install solar PV in all these business entities. But of course, Seychelles being
Hopefully, we'll never see a solar powered war.
Sorry? Yeah, of course, Seychelles being a touristic destination and our economy is based on tourism. We all these islands nowadays, what we are doing is we are ensuring that with the assistance, of course, from international donors and also with the ISA, we are putting solar mini grids on all these islands to ensure that it's become independent, and reliability. It plays, I mean, plays a major part, because tourism being one of major actor in our economy, we have to ensure that all the tourists who come to Seychelles really gets the electricity when they recommend. So, in other words, in a nutshell, what been doing is that we have ensured that in the energy sector, people get reliable, clean, and affordable access to energy. Thank you.
Absolutely. And indeed, I mean, again, you mentioned the solar on the military headquarters. Solar was almost invented for military purposes. It was the US military who invented it back in I can't remember which decade, but for those off-grid purposes, for off-grid applications. So we have them to thank for that and all the other good they've done to the world. So then I want to come to Michele Belen from the ministry from Fiji. Thank you so much for joining us. And I want to ask, what in terms of scaling up solar mini grids across the different islands in Fiji, what are the different policies and regulations and also financial facilities you've put in place in order to make that happen? And have you been helping other island nations do this as well in the Pacific and also around the world? I know that we have the Greening the Islands Foundation here represented, looking at not just renewables but also heating and cooling and waste management and so on these islands. So how do you manage to also fit it all together into one overall green ecosystem on the islands of Fiji?
Yeah, thank you, moderator, for the question. Yes, for Fiji, similar to my friend from the Seychelles, we are a country that are connected by ocean. We are remotely located on the looking at the economic supply chain in terms of fuel supply, and even looking at renewable energy. And for us, in terms of our electrification program, we've actually moved from the use of diesel generators to solar home system, and now we are investing into microgrid system. And for the last couple of years, with the support of government and also with some of the donor partners, we've started to roll out the solar microgrid system. And at the moment, in terms of our target, our electrification target, the strategy that we are using at the moment is looking at the least cost technology. As I mentioned, that we started off with generators. We got about 300 communities, villages that we provided them with generators. And then as we progress, government have really invested a lot into our electrification program. We have extended the grid quite extensively to the remote and to the rural areas. And then, the solar technologies start to come in. I think that was in the early 2000.
And were the diesel generators typically just powering like one household or one business
It's a
or a
community.
whole community?
It's a community generator. In Fiji, basically, like in rural communities, you have around 40 to 50 households in a community. So basically, what happens, we have the community diesel generators that provide electricity to the entire community. And then now that we're starting to invest into microgrid system. And the other thing is when we talk about electricity access, we actually want to provide them with some sort of basic electricity access. That was the ultimate target. But then again, the demand from the communities, they really want to move away from the traditional use of electricity. They want to have access to more modern electricity supply, which is, I believe, something that is in line with the Sustainable Development Target under SDG 7. So what we are planning to do once we connect them to a permanent supply, either through the supply from the grid, from the national grid, so that is like a permanent supply to the community. We also looking at the supply from through the use of microgrid system. And at the moment, we got a facility because we government have actually funded around 2 projects, microgrid projects. Yeah, it's very costly for us. It's quite it's a capital intensive investment for government to invest into those microgrid system compared to Solom system. So at the moment, we got a facility. It's called the Fiji Rural Electrification Fund. So what happens within that facility? It's a revolving fund facility. It is meant to attract donor partners to come in and support us with our electrification program. So basically, the fund has its own constitution. It's totally independent of government. Sorry. So you can. Thank you. So it's totally independent of government. And at the moment, we're trying to roll out that the model. As I think as alluded to in the speech by Honorable Minister, that we've attracted some funding from the donor partners, from bilateral partners, and now we're starting to roll out that funding modalities. And the idea behind that is to engage private sector. As I mentioned, that we are an nation that are connected by ocean, and accessibility is quite a big challenge for us. So at the moment, as we speak, we've got the support from the USTDA. They've engaged the Arizona State University to carry out the feasibility studies for around 76 sites. I know that's quite a big number for us, when you look at microgrid system. And
76 cents per
76 communities.
76 community sites. Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 76 communities. So after this study, what will happen is we're going to look for donor agency to fund for the implementation. And roughly, we're looking at around 15 million US dollars for us to roll out this microgrid system. And it is something that once we start to do this, it will be a model that we can replicate to other Pacific Island countries. That is something that we are anticipating. And within that model, we also have the support. We have the Global Green Growth Institute, the UNDP, and some of the partners they have come in to provide the technical support. They've been providing technical advice and support in terms of rolling out the program itself. But it is something that we really look forward to, but we understand the challenges that we are going to face in terms of setting the especially with the tariff that we are going to set, that will be that will entice the private sector to come in and run these projects. But I believe with the support that we are receiving and the lesson learned throughout this program will really help us move forward with our program in terms of providing microgrid, and something that we feel will also be assisting our member countries as we move into the implementation stage.
And you said you needed 15 million US dollars of investment into the Fiji Renewable Energy Fund
Yes.
in order to electrify those 67 communities,
Exactly.
right? Well, we at the Global Solar Council can certainly commit, and the Greening the Islands Foundation can commit to trying to help you find that from donors from Asian Development Bank, AIIB, perhaps from other sources, and indeed the global tripling of renewables targets that we have been pushing for here at COP that 130 countries have backed, and that inshallah, we will get in the negotiated outcome tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, if everyone supports it. And I want everyone to get their governments to support the inclusion of the tripling of renewables target into the text tomorrow. I think that that will help send a huge market signal to global financial markets to invest in these kinds of projects.
Thank you.
And to not probably put so much money into the diesel generator business, but we'll see about that. We'll see about that. Sorry for any diesel generator business people here. Surabi, I want to come back to you. And I want to talk about storage because, I imagine a lot of these microgrids have solar, have storage, and then other technologies as well. And the cost of storage is coming down massively every day, every month, every year. Um, is that helping really make the economics stack up? And is that, displacing some of the diesel generators that we used to use in the past?
I think one of the, we still use, so as an organization, we work with a lot of clean energy entrepreneurs, and we support them in how they can access their components, solar panels, batteries, inverters, and so on. What we've noticed is that the market, there is a lot of signaling about improvements in battery storage, and there is when you start to look at the size and scale that we're talking about in terms of livelihood appliances and healthcare systems, what we're finding hard is the supply chain for, let's say, lithium ion batteries. The supply chain, particularly in the kinds of areas and communities that we're looking at, right? So even within the Indian context at this point in time, um, for the smaller lithium ion batteries, there is a better supply chain in place. However, when we start to look at these larger systems, we are still not convinced that the supply chain is reliable enough for us to be putting. So, we have a program to look at 25,000, solarizing 25,000 primary healthcare facilities across India by 2026, and working in partnership with the World Health Organization and IRENA to look at 10,000 primary health facilities across sub-Saharan Africa. At that scale, we would need to make sure that the reliability of supply chains is really strong, and that there is a warranty period that coincides. Today, the warranty periods on batteries is 5 years, so a minimum of a 5-year period, which in the case of livelihoods, it coincides with the term frame of the loan that a farmer or a micro entrepreneur would get for their energy solution, right? So the warranty period has to minimum cover that time frame that they're getting financing for. And in the case of mini grid operators, it might be a longer time frame depending on the time frame of the loans that they're accessing. I think in terms of additional technologies, I can't stress enough how important it is for us to look at demand side based on the understanding of what is it that people want to power and run, and let's make sure we're putting in the investments in inclusive innovation at that level as well. Energy solutions and energy technology pieces, so every solution has the clean energy system, the efficient appliance, and the green built environment, right, to make an optimized solution such that you're making sure natural lighting, ventilation are also taken care of for home based workers or for healthcare facilities, and optimizing your clean energy system based on the efficiency of the appliance and all of these other factors. Um, Ensuring there's enough innovation happening on the appliance side is something we've felt strongly about. We're waiting for battery technology to show us how the market can come together in terms of supply chains, particularly in areas like, when we're talking about the Seychelles and Fiji, we can't. We can't start off programs with an unreliable supply chain, because even in parts of the northeast of India, um, you find that costs are for any program are 30% more than it would be in South India, just because the supply chain structures don't exist as strongly and the fact that transaction costs to travel in areas that are hilly, that are forested, where you're still working with mud roads is significantly more. And those costs will have implications when we look at different components within the energy system. And I think it's worth taking that into account. And when we look at the end user, they need reliability of energy supply. That's the baseline, right? At an affordable price. We cannot tell them we're not sure about this particular solution yet, but you put it in and we'll figure it out as time goes by. So especially not in those areas. We will choose champion farmers to test this out with in Peninsula India, where we can make sure that within a 24-hour time frame, if a system is not working, there is somebody who can fix it and their livelihood is not compromised. But in regions that are harder to reach, that are forested, that are hilly, and that have a limited infrastructure access, I think we need to be sure that there's replacements, spare parts, and adequate supply chains established before we can put solutions in. Having said that, I think we are often reliant on what manufacturers are bringing in and are suggesting are the best technologies that we can then innovate on in more accessible areas and then bring in to more difficult terrains. We are adding in this component of remote monitoring systems, especially with the healthcare program, simply to be able to see, when you talk about 25,000 healthcare facilities, you can no longer have field visits to each facility. So remote monitoring systems with a combination of, call center style spaces where a health facility can call and say, my system's not working too well, and then combining that with field visits so that you're improving predictive maintenance. You're looking at access to spare parts that are likely to go. We're having inverter issues in a lot of places, so we're now saying, okay, what are the components of the inverter that are most likely to go, that are likely to have problems? Can we make sure that there's training locally on the inverter maintenance, on this component of the inverter maintenance, and that spare parts are available in that area for that? So you're using remote monitoring systems to have predictive maintenance and a better sense of what is likely to fail, so you're accounting for that in implementation.
Absolutely. So, two big messages there. Make sure you have an operations and maintenance plan and a spare parts plan before you install, because there's no point in the thing just lying there doing nothing for weeks, because if you don't have that in place. And it sounds like we need to convene the storage and the battery manufacturers to make sure that they are feeding the right products into this market and that there are incentives to do that. Right? It sounds like there's a bit of a gap in the market there. Wills, if I can come to you, and maybe we need to finish, but what in your experience needs to be done to make sure that these businesses are self-sustainable businesses rolling out these different microgrid and distributed renewable energy and solar home system solutions, and make sure that it's not, like Mr. Mishra said, freebies don't help, freebies don't work, right? Especially if the operations and maintenance and the spare parts supply chain isn't in place. Have you had any experience in that field in the Seychelles?
Yeah, of course, we do have experience in that field. Of course, maintenance, as being mentioned, it's a key. We always ensure that when we install solar PV, we come up with a very good, reliable maintenance plan and capacity building. For us, being a small island developing state where capacity is quite low, and we have to come up with a plan where we strengthen capacity so that reliability of all these plants, be it solar power plant or, for example, we have now as I talk of solar floating EVs being installed of 5 megawatt, which is the first in Africa, I would say. And
And is that on seas or on
it's an lagoon, it's an lagoon.
lagoon?
Yes, floating PV. So all these we come up with a very robust maintenance plan and also capacity plan. Thank you.
I would love to come and visit your floating solar lagoon one day. Absolutely.
You are welcome.
Let's organize it for next year. I think we need to finish there. I don't know, Michaela, if there's anything more you want to add quickly before we finish, because then we need to ask Mr. Nar Bahadur, the program specialist from the International Solar Alliance, to come and say some closing remarks. Michaela, anything you want to add before we finish?
Yeah, maybe just a few more things that I would like to mention, especially with the support now that we are trying to bring in the private sector. So we will need the support for them to to come in and provide services, operation and maintenance on this system. So that's where government will need to come in terms of providing the supporting environment, either through some sort of incentives, maybe through subsidy or those kind of support that will be required, and also the market that we need to to put in place. We're talking about the spare parts and also looking at with the modern technology. We've been having discussion with the local network providers with our telecommunication. We need to make use of the platform that they have in terms of making payment, solar payment. That is one area that we've already have the discussion. So you can, anywhere during the smart meters, with all those support, technology support, and also with the support from government, we'll be able to provide a good environment for these companies to operate on, and also contributing to the long-term sustainability of the project.
Absolutely. And that question of how to manage the payments for the electricity and how to digitalize that and the credit worthiness of the off-takers is a really important one. And maybe that can be a subject for one of our next events in Baku or elsewhere. So I think we'll move to there. That's the panel. If I could ask Mr. Bahadur to come forward to just give some closing remarks. And then we will thank you all for your participation. Thank you to the panel and look forward to discussing with you again soon.
Thank you, Ms. Sona, for the excellent moderation and also um, and all the excellences, as well as Sudhanshu for setting the context very well, and also excellences for giving us a very, very insightful and thought-provoking remarks initially. And the more I speak, the less it becomes, because this particular topic is so important that today, mainly because not that we are also discussing about tripling. Actually, that's actually there's a negotiation going on, tripling of share of renewable energy by 2030. But again, we started, I think, in 2015 when in Paris, when we was a UN event about 2030, those SDGs were launched, and then universal access to electricity. That is, that time around, I think 1.4 million people were, I think, not having access to electricity or access to energy. And today, as Sudhan's already mentioned initially, that we have still around 675 million people who do not have access to electricity. So how can we provide that access to this last mile connectivity, the transformational change that I think Sonia pointed out, that is very, very important. And I would just like to summarize the three key takeaways from today's discussion, if you allow me, though we are, I think launch is there. I don't want to keep much longer for you all, but yes, one thing that came out very strongly is that one size fits all type of a model, business model, will not going to work. Mainly because actually, based on our own experiences, also and based on the experiences from various stakeholders, because when we are working with different countries and different geographies, and within the country, different business actually locality, the situations are different, the conditions are different, and also the development needs and priorities are different, and therefore we need to be more flexible enough to adapt to those situations so that at least we can work together. That's one. And then second one is also that rather than say a solo home lighting system, actually you pointed out very well, I think, Suzy. Decentralized solar solutions, that could be one of the options, because that will help the entire value chain and the entire ecosystem of livelihood also that needs to be taken into considerations when we are discussing about access to electricity. Um, uh, that is the next one, so that we can have particularly economic benefits in the entire ecosystem. So that is one. Then again, as I said, I want to reiterate that transformational change and last mile connectivity. That is actually at ISA, we are not compassionate enough. We are working day and night to achieve those last mile connectivity, and it also resonates from our vision that every home, no matter how far, will have net at home. So this is our vision, and we'll be working so hard that at least we can achieve this last mile connectivity by 2030. With this, I would like to again thank once again to all our excellencies and also Sonia for excellent moderation and for bringing this insightful discussions. And hopefully, we'll have a lot of takeaways from this. And it also rejuvenate us, more energy to work forward. And we look forward for partnerships and collaboration. That is a key going forward, strengthening existing partnerships as well as inviting new partners to come forward in this journey towards connecting the last mile by 2030. Thank you so much. And before I end, I do have a small moment or token of appreciation to our speakers, and if we can distribute that. Thank you so much.
No, sir.